This weekend, we are here for just about 2 days, the better part of 2 days. And in my presentations, I'm going to be focusing a little bit on the place of the law in the Christian's experience. Now, I know that most of us here became involved with the movement because of the Godhead message. I know most people, even today in Jamaica and most parts of the world, most of those who belong to this kind of movement, what really turns them on and what really burns inside of them is when you start talking about the Father and the Son. A lot of folk, this is the important message for them. And it is very important. It is very important. As a matter of fact, my own involvement in this movement, I started traveling to America and different parts of the world because of that particular message. Most of those who come to embrace it, it is so mind-opening and so revolutionary. It's all they talk about for a long time. I have been involved in this movement since 1995, 96. So it has been a very long time. It has been 95, 2005, 2015. It has been 24 years, a long time. So I'm a veteran. But I suppose I have to say that unlike some people, I don't think I've stayed at the same place. One of the accusations, you all know what has happened from time to time, so I'm not telling you something new, but you know that the message that we have been sharing, Brother Howard and myself, it has been heavily criticized by many people in our movement, because one of the things they say is that I'm always trying to come up with something new. I'm always trying to find out something new because I'm trying to create excitement, they would say. I'm always trying to look for something new, to find out something new, because I like excitement. That's the accusation I've heard. And some people have become very strong in their opposition. I was reading some comments a lady made this week, and the thought just came to me. This is hate. I mean, the things I saw her saying. I didn't get involved because it's hard for you to defend yourself. There was a brother there who was doing a good job of defending my position, but the things she was saying, I could feel like hate. I mean, like she was saying, this man is a disgrace to the word pastor. And why would anybody waste their time and listen to this person? You know, it's not just opposing what was being said, but trying your best to belittle the person. And I laughed because these days I've learned to just ignore certain things because it's a part of life. It's a part of life. It's what you expect. And I'm kind of glad because I remember one time I read this verse. Beware when all men shall speak well of you, because so their fathers spoke of the false prophets. And at that time I thought to myself, I wonder if I'm a false prophet because I didn't have any enemies. And there was nobody fighting and opposing what I was saying, and I was thinking, I wonder if I'm a false prophet. But I found out that the more I started to follow what I see in the Bible more closely, I began to make enemies. People began to become violently opposed to the things that were being said. And I suppose in a way, I don't like when my life is too boring. I'm that kind of person. I don't like a boring life. I don't know if anybody likes a boring life. But I'm still at the place where I don't like my life to be too boring. But I don't like to have enemies. I don't like to have enemies. And I don't set out to have enemies. But I ask myself sometimes, what is it that brings us to this place? Why are we at this place? And as the Lord lives, as the God of heaven lives, The only thing I've tried to do, and I will continue to do it as long as I have intelligence, what I've tried to do is simply to understand what the Bible says. And what I see, to share it. Brother Adrian and I were speaking a little earlier on, and I was saying, if I've learned this, if you set out to not displease people, you will never speak the truth. If you make it your purpose in life not to offend anybody, and not to do things that will disturb the crowd, you will never speak the truth. Because the truth is going to offend somebody no matter what you do. So, you have to set your mind in a way that the only person in this universe who matters as far as what you believe and what you teach is God. Because the time will come when nobody, or it may come, hopefully not, the time may come when nobody believes what you are saying except God. It happened to Noah. His family probably came along because they were relatives, maybe. Well, hopefully they believed him. But it almost happened to Jesus too. One day he said, if you don't eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have no part in me. And everybody left, except the 12 disciples. And he said, you're going to leave too? And if it were just the things that he said, they would have gone. But they said, where would we go? You have the words of life. So even though they didn't understand what he was saying, they stuck with him because they had found out he had the words of life. The other people left because the doctrine was strange. Okay? And I've learned that you have to have a relationship with God where the person who is closest to you is God. Because the time will come when everybody else will oppose you for some reason. And it's you and God alone. I even remember when I first came to understand this message of righteousness in Christ, as we now believe and understand it. And Brother Tony was reminding me about it. I was in my kitchen that morning praying, and I was saying, oh God, when will I ever become what you want me to be? When will I ever be? I've been trying for 30-something years, and I'm still at the same place. I don't seem to be going forward. When will I ever change? And it's like in the darkness, something just spoke to my mind and said, you will never change. You don't need to change. You need a different life. And the reason why it hit me that way that morning was because I had just come to understand about the two Adams. That's why this has become a very special message for me. I was just understanding the idea behind the two Adams. One Adam brought us into death, one Adam brings us into life. But this morning I saw clearly it's not just that legally I'm in the second Adam. It's that the second Adam has my life. The life that is in Jesus Christ is the life that I need. That life is already perfect. That life already has everything that I need. I was trying to create what already existed. That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to become perfect by doing all the perfect things. I didn't recognize that my perfection was already done by somebody else, put down and sealed. My challenge is how to receive that life. That was my challenge, and I did. That morning I understood it, and it blew me away. First person I could get a hold of was my wife. I said, sweetheart, thank God I don't have to be perfect. And she said, what? She went around in a daze all day because she thought I was going off. And then in the evening I explained to her what I meant, and then she had some rest in her mind. But the thing is, when I went to church that Sabbath to share with my brethren who had been with me since 1985, when we got put out of the church, we started an independent church. These people have been my brothers all those years until 2005. How long was that? 20 years? And when I went and shared this message, everybody stood against me, including my own son. That boy never opposed me in anything in all his life, and that day he opposed me in church. My brethren and my friends, Brother Bill, Brother Dervin. Huh? Can anything be like that? No, nothing can be like that. And I realized that Sabbath I stood alone with God because nobody accepted what I said. But afterwards, as they began to understand, of course, everybody came around to understand. But that first day, I stood alone with God. And I came to, it was reinforced in my mind that you have to know what you know between you and God, because there are times when nobody else will stand with you. But if you got your message from God, then it doesn't matter. When you live to please the Lord alone, your faith will be stronger, and then it doesn't matter what other people do. Other people cannot turn you away from the way of truth when you know that it is God who gave you that message. So, it was that way. Now, I'm kind of jumping around a little bit here and there, but the point I want to make is this, that I'm kind of proud of this fact. And I don't use the word proud in a negative sense. I feel good about it. I'm kind of proud of the fact that our ministry has been trying to move the truth, to move forward with the truth. We have not been stuck in the same spot since 1995. A lot of the ministries that we were involved with in the beginning of this movement, in my honest opinion, they have not moved. They have stood at the same spot, and they are saying the same thing over and over in the same way for the past 20-something years. And it's good to be stable. It's good to have a foundation that you stand upon. But the point is this. Do any of us live under the illusion that we are where God wants us to be, that we're at the end? We're at the end point where God wants us to be? Is any of us under the illusion that, we have found the answer and we are already in the middle of where God wants us to be? Is there no more place for growth in development and understanding? Are we at the end of the journey as far as learning truth is concerned? Some people seem to have that idea. When you come to the place where you know everything that God wants you to know, I'm going to tell you, we will not be in the condition that we have been in for the past, how many years? Decades. Anybody who becomes satisfied and thinks this kind of way, this is the epitome of what Laodicea means. I am rich and increased with goods and in need of nothing. I'm happy, I'm proud of the fact that God has been able to bless our ministry in helping us to see that when you understand the truth about God, it leads you to another step. And when you go to that other step, it takes you to another step. And when you go to that other step, it takes you somewhere else. And you follow the path of truth. You look at the clues, and the way opens wider and wider. And the unfortunate thing is that you begin to see things that nobody else is seeing. And then everybody, the more you walk in the path of light, the more other people say you are going into darkness. It's like with Jesus, right? The first truth that he told them, they rejected it. So when he raised the dead, what choice did they have? They had to kill back the man that he raised from the dead. They had to start, when you start opposing something, and you are stubborn in that opposition, every step forward in truth, you have to find a way to identify it as Satan's work. Till you come to the place where even when a man raises somebody from the dead, you have to convince yourself, even though Satan cannot create life, you have to convince yourself that you have to oppose it as Satan's work. So it's dangerous to take the first step in opposition to truth. Be true to your conscience. One brother accused me, I remember one of the leaders in the movement accused me. He said, there are these wolves in sheep's clothing have been destroying the flock, and I have been quiet for too long. Now I will have to stand up and oppose this person. So he accused me of being a wolf in sheep's clothing, because he says, what I can see is that this man is trying to lead people right out of Adventism. And so his concern is that he has to defend his denomination, or he has to defend his belief structure. And I can understand. I understand, okay? I was born into Seventh-day Adventism, and I grew up in it. I was disfellowshipped in 1985, but at the same time, I never truly came to the place where I have rejected Adventism. I've rejected some of the things that they teach, some of the things the church teaches, but I can't identify as a Pentecostal, a Baptist, a Jehovah's Witness, a Methodist. No. My roots are Adventism, and as I study the Bible, there are some foundational things in Adventism that I hold on to because I see it in the Bible. And I can't get away from it. So I would never identify myself as anything. In fact, the best option I take is I don't align myself with a denomination, but I confess many of the ways I see things are in line with how Adventists see things. But I'm not taking that road to defend Adventism, because people have put Adventism above the Bible. Adventism must take its place when it agrees with the Bible. And when it disagrees with the Bible, what then? What then? Are we to do like the Jews who stood by Moses and killed Jesus Christ? Are we to say, this is where Moses took us and we are not prepared to move any further than where Moses took us? That is the attitude some people have. And so they are very strong for their Adventist beliefs and their denominationalism, but they are very weak when it comes to the Bible and the righteousness of Christ. So, I'm saying all of this because I'm saying that on this weekend, I in particular, I'm not sure about Brother Howard, but I in particular, I want to be focusing a little bit on the place of the law. Because I could say that in terms of doctrine, the center of Adventism has been the law, is the law. And I'm convinced that, well, I don't need to convince anybody who understands Adventist history, because even in Adventism, in the history of Adventism in 1888, God tried to change this focus. Nobody can deny that who understand. In 1888, Jones and Wagner brought a message to the Adventist church. And the purpose of the message, it has been very clearly stated, it was to lift up Christ. It was to put Jesus Christ where the law had been put. And I'll tell you, Adventism has not escaped that trap until today. Today, still the center of Adventism is the law. And this is why I'm going to be talking about the law for this weekend. Now, why? Because I believe that, or I could ask you a question to make my point. When does something good become bad? Anybody think you can propose an answer to that question? When does something good?
When you know something and you reject it.
When you know something and you reject it, all right.
When you know something is true.
Then it has a bad effect on you. All right? When the good thing is misused, that's another way. It's like if you take your toothbrush to clean your shoes. That's a bad use, but it doesn't make the toothbrush bad.
Maybe when it's lost sight of its original value.
Yes, that's kind of getting there. What I have in mind is this. You have degrees of good. You have good, you have better, and you have best, right? Suppose good prevents you from having best. Would you say good is doing a bad work? When something that is good is used in such a way that it prevents you from having what you ought to have, then it is bad. Even though it may be good in itself, in its own proper place and right. Because Paul says this about the law. For we know that the law is good, if what? Brother Howard said it, but if the rest of us are not familiar with it, I would like us to read it. So since we have just been rambling a little bit, look at 1 Timothy 1 and verse 8. Because Paul's word here, if, is kind of instructive. Because what he means is that the law is good under certain conditions, which suggests that under other conditions, it probably might not be as good, right? Or it might not even be good. So he says in 1 Timothy 1 and verse 9, verse 8. He says, but we know that the law is good if a man use it lawfully. So there is a lawful use of the law, and there is an unlawful or an inappropriate or illegitimate use of the law. So the law is good if you use it the right way. But if you use it the wrong way, obviously, it's not good. So, this is what I think Adventists in general, people in the One True God movement have done. They have put the law in the wrong place. And they have used the law unlawfully. And so the good law has become a harmful thing. All right, so each time I talk this weekend, the first thing I'm going to say, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to put it on tape. I believe the law is holy, and the commandments holy, and just and good. And I know that in spite of that, people are going to go around and say that I say the law is no good, and that it is done away with. But I'm going to say it anyway for the record, because every time I say it and then I say something about the law, they accuse me that I'm saying that the law is done away with, and well, they don't really listen. They hear what they want to hear. But anyway, Paul says the law is good if a man use it lawfully. So, obviously, there is a way it can be used unlawfully, and if it is used unlawfully, it's not good. Now, as I said, when good takes the place of best, then good becomes bad. In that context, good is bad. And I think that's what has happened to the law. It has taken the place of the best. And God wants us to have the best, and therefore the law, being in that place, is serving a harmful purpose. Now, I'm going to entitle my presentation this afternoon. I have two titles. I don't even know which one to use, but I'll give you the both of them. One is No Speed Limit, and the other one is Thou Shalt. Thou shalt. All right? You can choose which of those you prefer, but I think I'm going to choose a title maybe when I'm doing the editing, but at the moment those two titles appeal to me. Now I'd like us to begin by reading from 1 Corinthians 6 and verse 12. Brother Howard alluded to this verse a little earlier on, but I'm going to read it and we'll explore it a little bit. Paul says, beginning from verse 12, all things are lawful unto me, but all things are not expedient. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be brought under the power of any. Now here is this strange phrase that you're not going to find too many people use this verse or preach about this verse, except those who are really anti-law. Paul says all things. What does the word all mean? Everything. Is that true? Are all things lawful? Can you believe what the Bible says? Is it lawful to steal? Is it lawful for me to steal? Is it lawful for me to commit adultery? Then you cannot accept the verse. It says, all things are lawful unto me. Now, when you see something like this, usually there are two possible ways to approach it, but usually our minds take the most obvious way. And we miss the other angle. Paul says, all things are lawful unto me. So, I ask the question, does it mean it's lawful to commit adultery, to kill, to steal? Now, I believe it means exactly that. I believe it means exactly what Paul says. All things are lawful. Now, is it wrong to commit adultery? Yes. Is it wrong to steal and to kill? Yes. But, for me, is it lawful for me to do these things? Yes. Paul says it's lawful. So something is not quite adding up here. And this is the root of the way we don't understand what Paul is saying. Now, if it is wrong to do it, how can it be lawful? The obvious answer, the only way to reconcile both things is a path that people don't normally take. The way to reconcile all things is to understand that the law no longer can tell me what to do. The law no longer controls my life and no longer governs how I behave. Where the law is concerned, don't speak to me. All things are lawful. As far as you are concerned, you cannot speak to me. All things are lawful for me. Tell me if you understand what I just said. Is it right for me to do this? No, but you can't tell me not to do it. Why? Because I have been delivered from your government. You no longer have authority over my life. So, because you no longer have authority over my life, you can't tell me what I should do or shouldn't do. But do I do the things that are wrong? No, because all things are lawful, but what does the verse say? But what? They are not expedient. They are not helpful. They are not beneficial. So I don't do these things, but not because of the law, because my life has been delivered from the government of the law. I'm not under the law, in other words. This is the technical and tricky way of truth. This is Paul's theology. It's New Testament theology that is very difficult for Adventists and most people who believe in the law to grasp. And I'm going to use an example that I have used many times, but it's very handy, very convenient, and I'll go back to it because it's perfect, close to perfect. When I was a little boy, I didn't run my own life. I didn't control my life. I had two parents who did that. Look, when my mother I like to use this illustration because it was something my mother wanted and something I didn't want. She made us drink porridge every morning. And up to this day, it's 10 of us children. My brothers and sisters, they hate porridge. And I will drink it, but it has to be cooked exactly to a certain specification. My wife, I had to teach her how to do it. If there's one lump in it, I don't want it. Because when my mother gave us this porridge, sometimes there were lumps and the lumps would stick here and it couldn't go down. And she used to spank us to eat our food. My mother wasn't like these mothers these days who let their children do as they like, because we were very poor and she had 10 of us. So she would put the food on the table. You better eat it, whether you like banana or potatoes or what, you eat up. So she would put the porridge on the table, tuck the strap in her waist and go to the kitchen. And when she comes back, the plates need to be clean. So, look, anytime Mama was not looking, I threw mine to the dog, right? But I had to make sure she didn't see. So, I drank cornmeal porridge, and I prayed for the day when I wouldn't be able to have to drink cornmeal porridge anymore. Why did I drink it? Because I wanted to. I was under the law. And there was a penalty if I broke the law. The law that governed my life was my mother's law. I had to do what she said, so I drank porridge with the utmost disgust and the most unwillingness. And when I could get away from it, I got away. There were other things, right? My parents ran my life till I was about 17. When I was 17, I got a job, and then I broke out of, they couldn't tell me what to do anymore. I was making my own money. And because of that, I kind of went wild for a few years. For 5 years or so, I went wild because I was not accustomed to liberty. I didn't know what to do with it. But anyway, the thing is, finally, no more porridge. Finally, my mother can't tell me what time to come in at night. My father can't come hunting me down on Friday night when I go to play poker up in the hills with my friends, or I go to smoke marijuana with my brethren. They can't tell me what to do anymore. So, I was free from the law. Mind you, maybe I was not fit to be free. But I was free. I was delivered from their law. Tell me something. Now that I was free from my mother's law, was it right for me to go and play poker and to smoke marijuana? Was it right? No. Today, you know something strange? Almost every morning my wife gives me porridge. Even though she has to cook it the right way. And I enjoy it. Do you know that I don't need the belt anymore? Do you know that my mother can't tell me to drink porridge anymore? She cannot tell me to drink porridge anymore. And I am drinking porridge. Am I under the law? No. I was delivered from the law many years ago. As far as my mother is concerned, all things are lawful. She cannot tell me how to run my life anymore. I mean, she's my dear old mother. She's 94 and I love her dearly. I don't mean to speak of her in any negative way. That's not the point. That's not the point. Today I appreciate the effort she made and how hard she worked with 10 children. I marvel how she did things. So that's not the point at all. The point is I'm trying to get you to understand that to be under the law means that you are governed by something that controls you, whether you like it or not. Your will does not come into the picture at all. The fact that you are delivered from the law does not mean that you are going to do what the law said you shouldn't do. That's the point I'm making. It means that that system of government no longer applies in your life. Everything that my mother wanted me to do, I probably do most of it today, but without my mother. Everything that the law says should be done, by God's grace, I'm doing it today, but not because of the law. Not because of the law. When I became a Christian, my government changed. My government changed. I was taken from under the government of the law, because who is the law made for? Who is the law designed to govern? The same verse we just read in 1 Timothy chapter 1. I didn't read verse 9. I read verse 8 where it says the law is good if a man use it lawfully. But I'm going to read verse 9. It says, but we know that the law is good if a man use it lawfully. Verse 9. Knowing this, that the law is not made for a righteous man, but for the lawless and the disobedient, for the ungodly and for sinners, for unholy and profane, for murderers of fathers and murderers of mothers, for manslayers. In other words, the law was made for people who don't know how to behave themselves. The law is made for people whose nature is contrary to the law. And you can understand, because if I came into this room and I saw a sign on the door that says, please don't spit on the floor, what would you think if you saw that sign? What would you think? It's out of place, all right, but that's probably the second thing I would think. The first, I would think one thing before that, the moment I see that sign, please don't spit on the floor. There are some strange people who come into this room. Somebody has been spitting on the floor. That's why they put that sign there. Because there's no sign there. None of us would do that. It's against our nature. They have not put a sign like that on the door. So, if you see a sign like that, you know somebody has been spitting on the floor. Rules are made because there are lawless people. That's why rules are made. That's why laws, legal laws are put in place. Don't drive, speed limit, 70 miles per hour. Why? Because everybody's going at 90, right? And everybody wants to do 90 or 100. So they try to limit your speed because your nature wants to go fast. So legal laws are made to control the nature that is contrary to law, contrary to the law. And that's an important thing to understand about legal law. In fact, most governments only make laws when people are breaking or misbehaving. In other words, they don't make laws about spitting on the street. I know in America, it's illegal to spit on the street or to urinate in public. Well, they are making the laws in Jamaica now. And why are they making it? Because people are complaining that it's becoming too open and too brazen. I don't know how they're going to enforce it, because they don't have bathrooms all over the place like here, but they're trying to make it illegal now to urinate on the roadside or whatever. But they're going to have a hard time, I can tell you. But they try to make laws because there are certain behaviors that they see that are acceptable. And that's the purpose of legal law. You wouldn't make a law and say, please walk on your 2 feet. That law is totally unnecessary, because it is every person walks on 2 feet unless he's handicapped. So you don't need a law to tell people to walk on 2 feet. So the point I'm making, I'm trying to reinforce over and over, is that legal law is made for people whose natures tend to break the law. This is why when God gives you a new nature, he can take legal law out of your experience. And he can say, Galatians 5 and verse 16 or 18, if you are led by the Spirit, can you finish it? Let's look at it then. Galatians 6 and verse 18. Did I say 6? It's my mistake. It's chapter 5. But if you be led of the Spirit, you are not under the law. So the only question you have to ask yourself is, am I led by the Spirit? If you are not led by the Spirit, you need the law. Because your nature is unruly, your nature is carnal, you are still under the bondage of Satan, you need law to control you. That law cannot save you, but it can control you and prevent you from killing people and stealing and committing adultery. It can help you to some extent to control you, but it cannot save you. Let me ask you something. let me just express something to you. If you're a Christian, if you claim to be a Christian, and somebody has to tell you, thou shalt not kill, what do you think of that? You think if you're a Christian, somebody needs to tell you not to steal? Man, what kind of a Christian are you? You're an imposter, you're a fake. You are not a Christian at all. You think somebody would have to tell Jesus Christ, don't kill and don't steal? If Christ lives in you, why do you need a rule to tell you, don't commit adultery? Why do you need a rule? Obviously, your Christianity is a fake. What you need is psychiatric help. You don't need rules. You need psychiatric help. Because clearly you know nothing about Christianity. You are pretending to be a Christian. If you need a set of rules to tell you, don't steal, don't kill, don't commit adultery, clearly you are not even a Christian. So Paul can say, look here, all things are lawful to me. I don't relate to the law. The law doesn't govern my life. All things are lawful. Anything that I do, the law cannot speak to me. But look here, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to live by the rule of what is helpful and what is proper. Because Christianity doesn't make you a libertine and an unruly person. Christianity, as my father used to say, Christianity makes a man into a gentleman and makes a woman into a lady. He didn't add that part. I'm adding that part. But I mean, it emphasizes the point that Christ changes you, brings you to the place where nobody from outside has to tell you how to behave. That's the point about Christianity. Now, I was in Germany, and I drove on a road called the Autobahn. And it's the first time I drove. I understand you have this in Nevada too. It's the first time I drove on a road where there's no speed limit. But it was kind of a thrill because my friend went up to about 250 kilometers, and it was kind of a thrill to be driving that fast. And while we were doing 250 kilometers, I heard vroom, and something shot past us, and I just saw the yellow color disappearing, and it might have been a Lamborghini or a Ferrari or something. And I was kind of, as a little fellow coming from a place like Jamaica, it was kind of mind-blowing to see people driving that fast. But this Autobahn, even in America, most roads you have speed limit. I think they don't allow much more than 70, right? Yeah. But on the Autobahn, if you want to drive at 500 miles per hour, you can. And it looks crazy. But if I drive on the road in Jamaica, I'll see far more accidents than I saw on the Autobahn. Far more. Even though people drive at this speed sometimes. Not everybody drives at those speeds, but you're free to do it, and you do see people flying past you at those speeds. Yet, there are not those kinds of accidents. In fact, let me read what it says about why it is that they allow this kind of driving there. It says, it's good highway, yes, but it says, the Autobahn, it is the ultimate speedster's highway located in Germany. Unfortunately, in the USA, the average driver is a less skillful driver than the average driver in Germany. That's not an insult, but it is a result that of the relatively easy driver's education program in the USA. On the other hand, in Germany, getting a driver's license is much harder and requires a lot more practice. So it makes sense that in the US you can't speed as much as you want, except in a few isolated places like Montana or Nevada. That's true. My friend in Germany, I was amazed when he told me that it was taking him $4,000 to get 4,000 euro to get his driver's license. And the euro is stronger currency than the US currency. 4,000. I said, man, are you crazy? In Jamaica, how much it costs? About $1,500? No, $1,500 is like $12 or so here. And in Germany, the 4,000 euro is because you have to go to school. And you have to go through a series of courses. The course is going to take you more than a year. In fact, they start doing the course from you're in high school. And then when you leave high school now, you have to pay to do the rest of it to finish, till you finally finish your driver's education. Getting a driver's license in Germany, in most of Europe, is a big event. So, because drivers there are so much, and when I drive with them, they are so careful about the road rules. So careful. I'm kind of amazed because in Jamaica we actually basically do anything. When I'm driving and I see these people, no, can't overtake here, or no, I can't drive on this side of the highway. It has to be this. It's educational for me because in Jamaica they do anything. And even in America they break the rules far more often than you see happen there. And so I realized that the educational system that they have, their minds are better adjusted to the dangers that are there and the needs of the mental approach you need to take in driving on the road. So when you see them driving at 300 kilometers per hour, you're not dealing with careless, idle people. You are dealing with people who are very experienced and aware of what they are doing and where to do it and what the risks are. So, it's not really as dangerous as it appears to be. Now, it's good to be free. It's good to be free in this way. And I think that's what Paul was saying. Paul was saying, I'm free to drive on the Autobahn. Right? But I know what I'm doing. I know my limitations and I know what I'm doing. Now, when you are free, when you set people free, there are certain hazards. You know, in America, you have some freedoms here that a lot of countries don't have. You have, well, they're trying to take away most of them now, right? Like a few years ago when I was coming here, you could probably drive around with a shotgun in your back seat and police wouldn't bother you too much, but they're trying to take away. I mean, most of us are convinced that there is some kind of conspiracy that is underfoot to take away the weapons from the people. Most of us who kind of have an idea and keep in touch with what is happening. Some of my relatives, like my brother and my sister, they're kind of short-sighted. They say, no, these guns are dangerous. They need to get them out of the people's hands and so forth. I understand why people say this, but I think people are ill-informed because I noticed the way they operate in Jamaica. All right? In Jamaica, you're not allowed to have guns, and it's hard to get a license. And look here. The only people who have guns are the criminals and the police. And they cannot take the guns from the criminals. And look here. There have been cases where you have feuds in an area, like in a neighborhood. And they will just go and kick off 7 doors on a night and shoot everybody in the house. I mean, that's in certain ghetto areas where you have gang warfare. It doesn't happen everywhere. But it's something to know that somebody comes and kicks off your door and all you can do is sit like a chicken and wait to be shot. You have no defense. And then after they shoot everybody in this house, they go to the next house, then to the next house. And where there's this gang warfare, they do it and you call the police. The police arrive 2 hours later. So it's absolutely, in my mind, stupid. Somebody walks up in a crowd. This has happened so many times. It even happened in a church. Somebody walks up in a crowd of 40 people, walks up to one person, shoots him in the head, walks away calmly. Nobody can do anything. The crowd scatters. Nobody has any weapon. Nobody has any defense. To me, it is mind-blowingly stupid. They have been trying for years to take away the guns from the criminals, okay? At one point, the police were executing anybody they caught with an illegal gun. The human rights people came in, and it's a big issue. So, anyway, but the point is, the more guns they take away, the more guns appear. They can't get the guns from the criminals. They get guns through Haiti. They get guns in containers coming from Miami, wherever. You can't get, the criminals have the guns and the police have the guns. And in the middle are the citizens who have nothing. Now, as I say, it's not like Jamaica is like this, but there are certain ghetto areas. I can call the names. Norwood, West Kingston, downtown Kingston. Those are areas where you have gang warfare. And it's like that, right? People die. The government recently had a program they call the ZOSO, Zones of Special Operation, where they had soldiers and police curfew the area. To go into the area, you had to pass through a soldier's checkpoint. To go out, you had to pass through it. And the crime died down for a little. Okay, they had that running for several months. Then they couldn't keep it up indefinitely. They stopped. And the crime goes back up immediately. The killing starts again immediately. So what I'm saying is, there are hazards when you are free. There are hazards, you know. But you ask yourself the question, what is better? To make people free or to keep them bound by certain rules? Which is better? And we all have different ideas as to how to deal with it. In fact, things have become so ridiculous in Jamaica. Howard and I went to the customs wharf where goods come in from overseas, and we saw them destroying a shipment of toy water guns. Plastic water guns, green and red plastic. And they were destroying them. Somebody brought in a shipment of toy guns because in Jamaica, toy guns are illegal. If they even see with a gun carved out of board, as an adult, you're likely to get in trouble. Maybe if you're a child, maybe you'll get away with it. If they catch you with a toy gun made out of board, it's a problem. So, then, because people stab people sometimes now, they start searching people, and if they see with a knife, you can get into trouble. If you have a knife. And I'm thinking, man, people use stones to kill people. So what, they're going to make stones illegal? It's a mindlessness about the way sometimes governments approach things. But I mean, it's human nature because they think that rules solve problems. They think that rules change the way people are. Take away guns from people, and if they want to kill you, they'll find another way to kill you. When I used to live by the seaside, and I used to go with the boys on the spear fishing, I saw two of these guys firing the spear gun at each other one day. Made to kill fish. I mean, in Jamaica, machete, the farmers use machetes in their work. They chop up one another every now and then. It's not the tools, it's the mind. Okay? But the rules and the laws are put into place to try to control the bad nature. And when you see certain rules being put in place, it's because of the nature of the people. And people always say what you need to try to do is to improve the educational system instead of impose another rule. Because where do you stop making rules? You keep on until one day, everything you do, you become a criminal for it. Okay? Right now, they recently removed the criminalization of using marijuana. For years, if they caught you with one seed, you would go to jail and you'd become a criminal. You would be fingerprinted and your name would be in the book as a criminal. And they couldn't keep up with all the people they were putting in jail. So eventually they had to change the law. And now they make it a law that if you're caught with if you're caught with as much as 2 ounces, no jail. All they'll do is give you a ticket like you ride a car, a ticket, and you pay a fine of 500 or something. And that's it. And of course, the police can't bother with that, so everybody's smoking it now. But if they catch you with more than 2 ounces, then of course you can go to jail and so on. But they had to do this because too many young people were becoming criminals. And once you have a criminal record and you are fingerprinted, you can never travel, it's hard to get a job. So, and then one person that they put in jail for this, he got killed in prison, so it made a big thing. And so they eventually changed the rules. And but the point I'm making is they make laws and they make rules for every negative behavior that comes up. And you think, where do the rules stop? Yes?
It makes me think of what Sister White said about Jesus. Jesus didn't become king of the Jews because the problem was not societal. The problem was in the heart. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Very good statement. And that's so true. Because if you think about this, and I think I'm finally warming up. If you think about this, how many different ways are there for you to behave? Give me just a word, just a number. Yeah, limitless. Okay, that's a good number. I mean, you think there are only 10 ways you can behave wrong? You think there are only 10 ways? If you're going to make a rule to make sure you behave right for every possible wrong, you won't end up with 613 like the Jews. You'll end up with several million maybe. At least several 100,000. Because every action you do, every time you move your finger, okay? Somebody accused me that, do you know when you're preaching you're making, what do they call them?
Gestures.
No, man, they have some arcane symbols or something. You're making symbols with your hands, right?
666.
Yeah. Somebody said it to me. And
the occultic symbols.
They say I'm making occult symbols, right? So, I said to the brother, I said, I have no idea what I'm doing. My hands talk, okay? When I'm talking and I'm trying to get my point across, my hands move. I have no idea what is happening. And I say, I'm not going to start thinking about it. Because if I do, I'm going to stop thinking about what I'm thinking about. So let my hands do what they want to do. And if anybody thinks I'm making occult symbols, I'm sorry for them. I'm not going to stop. And I didn't stop. But what I'm saying is that people will find a way to find fault with every single behavior. Okay? Somebody will say the lunch we had today was not, what they will say, too many beans, or not properly balanced, or something. They'll make something because people find a way. So if you are going to make a person live by rules, goodness gracious me, this is why you notice that when people have a legal mindset, the rules start to multiply. 10 are never good enough. They start to tell you what to eat, when to eat, how to eat. how to wear, what to wear, when to wear. Everything about your life, they start trying to take control of it, because once you are legally oriented, 10 rules are not good enough. You start to keep feast days or whatever. Because if you become acceptable by your behavior, then the more behavior modifications you make, the better you're accepted by God. When you think that your acceptance is based upon performance, then you look for other ways to perform. Not only this, when you're performance-oriented, you tend to measure yourself against the other brother. Olin has, well, it's like this lady. When I was a young Christian, a lady came to me one day and she says, "Are you a vegetarian?" I said, "Yes, quite pleased with myself." She says, "Do you use milk and eggs?" I said, "Yes." She says, "I don't use milk and eggs." She put me in my place. I was good, she was better. Okay? And then probably, you can find degrees in which you are better than other people. So what I'm saying is that this is a syndrome of what happens when you become law-oriented. And I'm saying law-oriented. And like I said at the beginning, I'm not against the law. But I'm anxious for the law to be put in its proper place and for us to understand why the law was put in place. It was put in place because God was dealing with carnal people. And that's who it was made for and who it was designed for. Your question when you come to the law is this: am I a carnal person? Am I a sinner or am I a saint? Am I righteous or unrighteous? I know you don't like to say it. This morning when Howard asked, who is a sinner? 1 or 2 people put up their hands. Howard was tricking you. But I understand the reason behind the question. Do you identify yourself as a sinner? If you think of the fact that there are 2 kinds of people in the world, sinners and saints, where do you fall? We have come to the place where we think we are kind of like a hybrid, a mix, halfway one and halfway the other. We have created something that the Bible does not know about. The Bible does not know of hybrid Christians. You are either a Christian or you're not a Christian. There are no hybrids. Half a Christian is not a Christian. Half a Christian is a non-Christian pretending to be a Christian. But why do we think this way? It's because we have conditioned ourselves to measure ourselves by our performance. If I measure myself by my performance, I can tell you that today I may be only 3/4 of a Christian. Because I have not been perfect since morning. If you measure me by my behavior, which day did any of you ever get up and say, I live perfectly today? Have you ever done that one day in your life? I know when I was a young Christian, I did it 3 days. I couldn't stand it after 3. Right? And it was just because I was so confused why I thought I lived 3 faultless days, right? I wasn't aware of what it is to really do wrong. I was measuring myself. And I was thinking, if I can keep this up for 4 days, then I can keep it up forever. Goodness me, I was so confused. So for 3 days, I was walking this chalk line and measuring myself and watching myself and trying to not even think. I fought my thoughts. I survived 1 day. The next day, survived. 3rd day, I survived. 4th day. It's hard. It's hard when you try to live like that. I remember one morning I was jogging. And if you have been through this kind of process, you will understand what I'm saying. If not, you might not, right? But I was trying to even perfect my thoughts. And I passed on the road, and I saw something, and I realized that my mind was heading in a certain direction. Look here, and I tell you, I fought my mind against it. I fought. I said, I'm not going to think that. I'm not going to think that. And I ran, and I started to sing, and I started to recite multiplication tables, and all kinds of things to make sure my mind doesn't think about that. How is it when you try to do something like that? What do you think is going to happen? It's just waiting. Your mind is just waiting and saying, go on, carry on. Because your subconscious knows exactly what is going on. The moment you stop fighting, what happens? It just pushes itself into your mind, okay? And that's exactly what happened. I fought for half a mile, tormented myself. And as soon as I relaxed for a moment, bang, it came into my mind. And I went home feeling defeated. And I've learned differently nowadays. I've learned this, that you can't stop birds from flying over your head, but you can stop them from making a nest. Meaning this: your mind will think what it wants to think. The fact that a thought passes through your mind is not a sin. It means you're a human being. It means you have a past. It means you have a history. It means that there are things in your memory that you can't get rid of. You can't take away things out of your memory. God will have to do that one day. And because it's in your memory, things will come back to the surface. But what do? Do you play with them? Do you nurture them? Do you encourage them? No. That's what makes the difference. I had the wrong idea about perfection, right? I had the wrong idea. I didn't understand that perfection was the state of your heart towards God. Not how perfectly you can bring yourself under rigid discipline. It's the state of your heart towards God. And I'm not talking about that today, but I'm just saying this is the way of law. It's very hard. Now, what would you say is the purpose of legal law? The rules-based law. I'm going to show you, because it's important to what I want to say. The verse we just read said that the law is not made for a righteous man, but it is made for the murderer, the blasphemer, disobedient, and so on. So what's the purpose of a legal law? How would you put it? Anybody? Can you suggest an answer? What is the purpose of a legal law? What does it do to you? What is it designed to do to you? To restrict or to restrain.
Point out your problems.
All right, point out your problems. Good. That's another aspect of it, another purpose of it. But I'm focusing on this one in particular. The purpose of legal law is to limit your behavior. All right, I want us to think about that for a moment and think if it's really accurate. Because most rules, they begin with, you must not. In fact, in the Ten Commandments, 9 of them begin with, thou shalt not. Only one of them says, remember. But all the others begin with, thou shalt not. And if you can think of all the laws you can think of in the country, don't drive above 70 miles per hour. Don't spit on the road. Don't break into your neighbor's house. I don't know all the laws you have here, but I bet all of them are intended to stop you from doing something. You rarely ever see a law that tells you to do something. Rarely. It's usually stated in such a way to prohibit behavior, not to create behavior. Okay? I mean, some of the things that might be to create behavior is to, like money-making things, like you must license your car because they need to make some money. You must pay your taxes. Okay? Those are the plus ones. But the purpose of laws in general is to limit behavior. And what we have seen thus far is that the reasons for freedom, why would you set a person free? Why does a person no longer need for his behavior to be limited? Why would you say? Under what condition would you say a person needs no limits on his behavior? Remember what we spoke about concerning driving on the Autobahn. Why would it be that you say to a person, you no longer need any speed limit? You no longer need any law to restrict or restrain, to tell you don't do something. Under what condition would you say?
More educated.
More educated. Very good. That's true when it comes to the laws of the land, like driving on the Autobahn and so forth. But in the realm of Christianity, the reason is stronger than that. Christ within, meaning that what has happened?
You've surrendered.
You have surrendered and Christ has come to live within, and what has happened to you? Your nature has changed. You have a new nature. Instead of a new education, in this case, you have a new nature, because there are two ways to obtain change. One is to educate the person, and the other way, which only God can do, is to change the person's nature. And you know the illustration that we use sometimes of the cat and the pig, right? A pig will always roll in the mud. Whether you beat him, or you teach him, or you encourage him, or you cajole, a pig will roll in the mud. Because it's his nature. And a cat will never roll in the mud. Even if you train him and beat him and provoke him, a cat will not roll in the mud because it's contrary to his nature. And a sinner will always sin. Regardless of what you say, you might threaten him with judgment, you might threaten him with investigative judgment, you might threaten him with eternal damnation. A sinner will sin. He will try to put on an outward air of respectability when he is being watched. And when he remembers that God is watching him and he's going to be judged, he will put on an outward form. But it can only last for a while because you cannot mask what you are for too long. So, this is one way. You can educate a sinner and he can try to change. But that's not real change. As Sister Tammy says, what God does is what nobody else can do. God changes the nature. And when the nature is changed, then it is that you reach a place where the law becomes irrelevant. And so, I'd like to read a verse here. I'd like you to go with me to Galatians chapter 5. I want to read from verse 22 to 23. A very, very well known, but there's a part in it I want to focus on. It says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love. In fact, let me start a little early on so you can get the context. Let's go back to verse 18, which we read earlier on. But if you be led of the Spirit, you are not under the law. So remember, the purpose of the law is to restrain your behavior. But if you are led by the Spirit, your behavior does not need to be restrained by law. And there's a reason for this we're going to see in just a moment. Now he goes on to say, now the works of the flesh are manifest. The works of the flesh are revealed, and they are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred. And he goes down, and he says in verse 21, of the which I tell you before, as I have also told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. These are the works of the flesh. And the law was designed to do what? To restrain the behavior of the flesh. Now, although the law was designed to restrain fleshly behavior, can restraining the flesh give you eternal life? No. To restrain the flesh is just to control what is still there. If all you can do is restrain your flesh, all right? Thou shalt not commit adultery. So you restrain yourself from going into the other man's bed. But your heart is there, your desire is there. When the opportunity presents itself, one day this monster inside waiting will ambush you, and one day you will do it. And whether you do it or not, it is still the same because it is the kind of mind and heart you have. You are going to be taken into eternal life with the mind of an adulterer, with the nature of an adulterer. Remember, I'm not talking about when something passes through your mind, because the birds will fly over your head. What I'm talking about is nurturing the thought and cherishing the thought and embracing it and even planning it. That's when it becomes something that cuts you off from God. So this is something I had to understand too, because I was so bothered about the fact that some things would pass through my mind. Like I told you, when I was 17 and I got out of my parents' control, for 5 years, I told people I didn't believe in God. And for 5 years, I did everything. I lived a wild, bad life. And I fell in. We were living in a little seaside village at the time, and I fell in with the life of that village. And they were the most loose, promiscuous, unruly people. No fear of God. And I fell in line with that community. And look here, the memories are there. You don't get rid of your memories. God will take them away one day, but the memories are there in my mind. And sometimes I see something, or I smell something, or I pass somebody, and a memory jumps into my mind. Have I committed a sin? I don't even know what I did. I can't control it. My mind is responding. My brain waves are responding to things that my eye sees, right? The thing is, don't feed on it. Don't keep your eyes there. Turn away from it and be conscious of the Lord's presence. But have you committed sin? There was a time when I believed that that was a sin. But like I said, that is nothing but temptation. You are tempted from your memories. You are tempted from what you pass through. The thought comes into your mind. You don't cherish it. You don't embrace it. You don't plan it. It's not a sin. It's not sin. It's simply a statement that you are still a human being. You still have a human mind. And you're holding to the Lord and waiting for the day when these last relics of sin will be blotted out. Your memories, these memories are to be selectively deleted. You won't remember these things anymore. So, the law can only restrain the way you behave, but it cannot change it. So why would we have law then if it cannot change people? Because if we didn't have law, people would kill each other and they would wipe out, the nation might be wiped out. Because you would have mayhem. People would break into people's houses, people would take away people's wives. I mean, it would be chaos. So the law brings control, but it does not bring salvation. And that is the point. So, Paul talks about these works of the flesh. And then he says, so you have two things, the works of the flesh, and then he says now in verse 22, but the fruit of the Spirit. So you have two things. You have the works of the flesh, number one. And opposed to it, you have the fruits of the Spirit. So you are either led by the Spirit or you are controlled by the flesh. And he said if you are led by the Spirit, you are what? Not under the law. And the law was made for the unrighteous. So those who are under the works of the flesh, they need the law. So I'm not saying the law is abolished. I'm not saying the law is done away with. The flesh people need the law to control them so they don't destroy one another. When I say that the law is no longer our governor, I'm speaking to Christians. I'm speaking to Christians. Because we are led by a higher law. And here's our law. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law. Now what does he mean when he says, against such? Notice what he says, against such there is no law. And this ties into what I'm trying to say at the beginning. Remember I said that my title was No Speed Limit, or Thou Shalt. Now Paul says, against such there is no law. What did we say is the purpose of law? To restrain behavior. Now see if you understand what Paul is saying. Against such there is no law. There is nothing to restrain your behavior when you are led by the Spirit. Because what direction is your behavior when you are led by the Spirit? Love. Thank you. Remind me of the name again. Nathan. Perfect Nathan. The purpose of a law is to restrain your behavior. Do you know of any law that says, thou shalt not love too much? There is no law that restrains the direction your nature is pushing you. There's no law. When you have a nature that produces love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance, no law can speak to you, because the direction of your behavior, the direction of your nature, there has never been a law made to restrain this kind of behavior. The other kind of behavior, the works of the flesh, all these negatives, the law was made for them. But because you are led by the Spirit, and the fruit of the Spirit is these things, you are free from law. Because there's no law against where you are going. All the laws are against where you were. Because a law is to restrain behavior. So law is to restrain behavior on that side. There's nothing to restrain your behavior on this side. So what I'm saying, brothers and sisters, is that as Christians, the new nature that we have has no limits on it. And I want to compare it to driving on the Autobahn, where there is no limit. Nobody can say stop or slow down. Because when you love, you will never hear it's too much. You will never hear, all right, you're overdoing it now. I mean, yes, you can get mushy and sentimental and maybe overdo sentimental kind of affection, but true love cannot be overdone. There's no limit against it. God has put you in a place where nobody can say to you, thou shalt not. Because the whole direction of your life is in a direction where God says unreservedly, thou shalt. Thou shalt love. Thou shalt be happy. Thou shalt have peace. Thou shalt be long-suffering. It's a life of thou shalts, not thou shalt not. There's no limit against your behavior. Nobody needs to put a speed limit on you, because no matter how fast you go and how far you go in this direction, you will still be legitimate. He did it not by re-educating our minds, but by transforming our hearts. And this kind of gives us the basic idea of why I say that our perspective and understanding of the law needs to be readjusted. Because the thing that was created to bring temporary and temporal control, to limit people's behavior, has been made eternally, universally relevant, that it comes to even take the place of Jesus Christ. That's what it has done in many people's minds. It needs to be removed from that place. The law was a limited device to control the behavior of carnal people. The thing that brings about real change is Christ in the heart. So our focus needs to be on Christ, not on the law. That's what I'm saying. And if people want to go and say, I said the law is done away, I hope I've made myself clear enough that such people might be proven to be liars. But thank you all for listening, and we'll expand on this more as the weekend progresses. God bless you. Let's bow our heads as we pray.